Hello everyone. So as Liette said, I'm Brooke Roberts. I'm a radiographer and knitwear designer. So that means I spend half of my time working in the NHS x-raying patients and the other half designing and creating knitwear for my fashion label. Not an obvious combination of careers, and that's why I'm here today, to let you all know that if you want to merge two opposing careers together, it's possible to do it and to do it really successfully. So I started out doing a science degree in Australia. I became a radiographer and I loved medical imaging. I loved anatomy and physiology. I was really passionate about it. But the job itself was not as stimulating as I'd hoped. It didn't fulfill me creatively. So about a year after I graduated and began working in hospitals, I decided to move to the UK and embark on a new career. And as soon as I arrived in London, I felt this immediate sense of being at the centre of everything. I was so inspired and excited by London. And I thought, if there's any place in the world where you can be what you want to be, London is that place. So while working as a radiographer, I began exploring other careers. I tried a few different jobs. I worked in a bank, I worked in a pub, I did a number of different things before I met a fashion designer. And he was incredibly passionate about his business and about the creative process and about constructing garments and selling them to clients. So that inspired me to explore fashion as a potential career. So I began doing some short courses and learnt more about pattern cutting, which is what underpins the creation of clothing. Pattern cutting is turning two dimensions in a paper template into a three-dimensional garment, and it allows you to explore trigonometry, architecture, your spatial awareness, proportion, and it really grabbed me, I guess for some of the reasons way back at the beginning that I did a science degree, it grabbed me in a technical sense, in a scientific sense. So I knew that that was what I wanted to pursue, so I went into formal training and did a degree in women's wear and fashion design, and then I did a postgraduate certificate in pattern cutting. So upon graduation, I was hired by a young fashion designer in London who was trying to create this new type of knitwear. And her ambition was to turn knitwear from traditional and crafty sweaters into elaborate, high concept, really conceptual three-dimensional sculptures for London Fashion Week runway shows. So I had the opportunity to spend 3 years working with her, and it was incredibly exciting, and I learnt so much about how to turn a concept into a real finished product. During that 3 years, I was being paid so poorly, I had to continue my work as a radiographer, so I was doing both jobs part-time. And it was at that time I wasn't really thinking about how the two careers could come together, but they worked very beautifully in parallel. So about 3 years after I began working for this designer, I got a little bit restless again, and I started to feel like I wanted to be creative in my own terms, and I wanted to explore, and I wanted to learn something new every day. I'm a very experimental person, and I love problem solving. So I wanted to take a new direction, but I just didn't know what. So it was one day when I was working in the hospital doing a CT brain scan, and the images came up on the screen in front of me, slice by slice. And the beauty of CT scanning is as the slices come up, there are shapes within the brain that form and morph into other shapes and then recede. And it's really quite poetic and beautiful. And it struck me at that moment that maybe it would be possible to turn those digital brain scans into a digitally knitted fabric. I had no idea how, but I was really excited by the idea, and I thought that this could possibly be my unique vision in fashion and help me to build my own business. So I have a video that I want to show you. Okay, so this is a video that I recorded just on my iPhone, and it's a 3D reconstruction that I did of a head and neck scan of one of my friends, and it's really just me playing around. I don't know if, can you guys play that for me thank you. So I've turned the sound off, and it's really just me playing with the cursor, and I'd reconstructed this from a whole bunch of data from the original scan. But I hope it gives you a little bit of a sense of how fun and imaginative imaging can be when you can reconstruct shapes and you can explore the shapes that form and recede within the body. So after this idea, I was full of excitement and possibility and really hoping to explore my idea. So I took some research scans to the knitwear factory in Italy where I'd been working for this other designer for 3 years. And I said, hey guys, I've got this idea. I really want to make brain scan knitwear. And they looked at me like I was mental. They were like, what are you talking about? Brain scan knitwear? Why would you want to use brain scans to make fashion? That's crazy, Brooke. And I said, but you know, this is what I love. This is what I'm passionate about. You know, these are the two things I know. And you know, I'm not going to start a fashion business just for the sake of it. I want what I do to be meaningful to me. And you know, I kind of just really want to know if it'll work now that I've thought of it. So they said to me, okay, well, you know, there's a computer. If you want to try it, you know, go for it. So I spent 3 days working on the very first brain and sinus scans that I'd selected. And I began assigning each pixel in the digital image to a stitch on the knitting machine. Because I was completely naive and I had no idea what I was doing, I started with an image that was hundreds of thousands of pixels in size. So effectively, I would have needed a knitwear machine that was about 50 meters wide and 100 meters long to knit this fabric out, which, you know, doesn't exist. So after 3 days of processing that file, I then had to start refining my ideas and developing smaller files, but still trying to retain the brain scan images and the aesthetics that I love so much from the original. So this shows is just a snapshot, really, of the process. So on your left on the screen is an MRI brain scan, and then in the middle is a digital file that I developed from that brain scan and then used to program the digital knitting machine. And you can see on the far right, that's a piece of fabric that's being knitted out. And here are some examples of final knitted pieces from a range of my collections. So I was able at that point to create one file that I could knit a brain scan piece of fabric from. And then I got so excited that it had worked, I started throwing all sorts of yarn at the knitting machine. So I was mixing wool, plastic, bioceramics, metals, camel hair, anything I could get my hands on, I was throwing into the mix. And I eventually developed a fabric that looked like the brain scans that had set me off on this path in the first place, but also performed like real fabrics and could be worn and felt really good to wear. So from that point, because it was working, I was able to develop a collection which I would present at London Fashion Week. So after this long series of experiments and creating this collection, I paused for thought and I reflected on what I'd done. This was just before London Fashion Week. And I started thinking to myself, how is this going to be received? This is my own unique perspective on fashion and science and medical imaging, but will the fashion industry be interested in it? Will they think it's a gimmick? You know, how are they going to react? So I got quite nervous at that point, but I realized that this was a unique career that I was trying to build for myself, and it was what I was passionate about. And I felt that if I was going to go forward in my career, I needed to present my work and see what the response was. So I took my collection to Fashion Week, and it was met with a very mixed response. So there was a great number of people, mostly from the media, who were really excited about this new idea, and they wanted to know about the process behind it, and they felt like there was a real possibility to bring science, medical imaging, and fashion closer together. But then on the flip side, there were a number of people who were quite turned off by the idea, and they didn't really want to put fashion and medical images and the insides of our body into the same conversation. But what inspired me about that experience was that I was starting a new conversation in science, technology, and fashion. And that pushed me forward. And the great thing about creating your own career and creating your own business is if you're doing it in your own way and nobody else is doing the same thing, there are no rules. So nobody could tell me I was doing it wrongly, and nobody could tell me what I had to do next. So I took that as an opportunity to explore and to collaborate with as many different people as I could. So I worked with a choreographer to present my collection at London Fashion Week through dance rather than a traditional catwalk show. I collaborated with a series of other artists. I worked with filmmakers. I did a collaboration with the Allen Institute for Brain Science in Seattle and took a series of their research images and then created a collection from that. So it really gave me the opportunity to grow and explore and build this realistic business. So that's the reason I'm here today, and that's the message I want to spread to all of you, is that if you would like to build a career from your passions, it doesn't matter how different they are. All you need to do is pursue your passions, get together a toolkit, and then present it to the world. And I've spent 6 years refining the techniques I've described to you today. And I've got to a point now where I'm able to work with cutting-edge technology using knitting machines, the same machines that Nike are using to make their Flyknit trainers. And I've been hired by big European fashion brands, including the Louis Vuitton Group, to help them to push their digital knitwear forward. So it's really possible to build a successful and viable and realistic career from your passions. There's one other thing I want to talk to you about today, and that is a competition that I'm launching, but it appears my slide has gone missing. There was a competition slide here, but never mind. It will be on my website today. So I'm launching a t-shirt design competition for 12 to 18-year-olds. So I'd like you to submit a t-shirt design based on a brain scan. It can have any references mixed in with the brain scan, and I will select 2 winners with a panel of judges. And then the 2 winning t-shirts will be put into production and will be sold on my website. So it's an opportunity for all of you in the audience and for anyone else in that age group to submit a design and then get involved in the process of creation and selling. There'll be a conversation going on social media, and as I said, there'll be more details about the competition on my website after Wired Next Gen today. So good luck, everyone, and I wish you the best in your future, hopefully, hybrid careers.
Thank you. Before you go, quickly, I know obviously you very much enjoyed your career as a radiographer and it's led you to through this journey, but you spoke to me about how you had quite an academic background and your family were quite academic and you felt that was the route to take. What advice would you give to someone that perhaps felt a little pressured to do a more traditional or academic route or career?
It's a really difficult choice to make, and I think it always comes from a place of wanting to have a backup plan and also just wanting to have a really viable potential job at the end of a degree, and there's still merit in that. I just think it's important to do what you're passionate about and love, so even if you haven't quite got a fully formed idea, and I guess especially if you haven't, just study something that you love. Study something you're passionate about. If you love physics, do a physics degree. If you love art, do an art degree. You'll always be able to find your future career as long as you follow what you're passionate about and get the toolkit together. I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
Life's too long to do a job that you hate.
Thank you so much again, Brooke. Thanks for
coming in. Thank you. Thanks.